Good to see you. Welcome to the Tibet Center here at 502 North Ridgewood Road in South Orange, New Jersey. So we'll start by reciting the prayer for the spreading of the teaching throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living there, together with their near ones, who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dhamma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness, may they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we had hoped and wished. The Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with his big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi which examines the dharmas, called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, "How should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge?" And Avalokiteshvara answered, "Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form, form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no object of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattva abides by means of transcendent knowledge, and since there is no obscurity of mind, no fear, they transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of true transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering, should be known as truth, where there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed. Tadyata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhiswaha. O Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the bodhisattva mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, "Good, good, O son of noble family. Profound transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. And the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praise the words of the Blessed One. Now we generate bodhicitta. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, in spirit, inspired by wisdom and compassion. Today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge until the Buddha and Dharma, until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, we'll do a rosary of Mani Padme Hum. So imagine you develop the wish to remove the suffering of all sentient beings. You think of individuals, if you like, and think of wishing to remove their suffering. So Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. So, last week we had a whole discussion starting right now about what inherent existence is. And I don't know, where did we get? What did we decide that inherent existence was?
We didn't.
Yeah, I don't think we really concluded the discussion.
Something that is inherently existent doesn't depend on other things. Is I think something that we came to an understanding about.
So it's independent.
And it was a lot of discussion. I can't quite pinpoint like the end of where we left off.
Unchangeable.
Unchangeable, yeah.
Permanent.
Permanent.
Unitary, excuse me, unitary?
Was unitary one of the...
I think so.
Okay, what does unitary mean?
Means one.
This is a unitary piece of...
That's what they use the language, the unitary.
Okay. I'm going to move my unitary cup over to this side. So, let's ask our mathematician. What does unitary mean?
It's a matrix that preserves the norm of a vector it's applied to.
What?
Oh no.
Say that again.
It was a non sequitur.
Okay. All right.
The
So-
word just means that it's a single thing of something.
There we go. That feels right.
So for something to be inherently existent, it would have to be a
Single?
singularity or a unitary or a...
Unitary is self-existent, standalone, all of those, not just a singular.
But most of those, independent, existing from its own side, those are phenomena. Those are things that do not exist. Why unitary is within the realm of existence and permanent. We have permanent phenomena.
Such as the empty space. So unitary does not exist on its own. It's dependent on
Well,
something else.
no. Wait. This is unitary.
But it's dependent on its parts.
If it were inherently existent, then the handle and the lip of the cup would have to be the same.
How is space unitary?
It's not
It's not unitary.
But it's,
Permanent.
It's permanent.
What
So,
exactly,
I feel like
what
space
exactly,
kind of-
I'm sorry. So what does unitary mean exactly?
One.
One, singular.
One,
Means that it's
okay,
the
Means
only
one.
thing of
One
that.
only.
oh, I see.
if you break down the one, it can be further broken into parts, and there's no partless part, right? So there's no such thing as just one.
No such thing as unitary.
Right.
Now that is, there are debates among the different schools
Right.
of Buddhism.
Yep.
There is a belief that there is such a thing as a partless particle.
According to which school?
The lower
Lower
schools,
yeah. Mhm.
and then the higher school says yes, but if you put a bunch of them together,
This is-
then where they touch would be different sides of that partless particle and would indicate that there are parts to the partless particle. In the same way as time is more interesting because time, the idea is that there is a unit of time that is the smallest that one could perceive. And the great meditators of one school say that is a 60th of a snap of a finger. And then there are others who say, no, we can get it down to a 260th. And so that there is a belief that there is a unit of time that can be differentiated from another unit of time, but that unit of time cannot be further. But of course, if time is composed of a series of units of a 260th of that, then each of those moments of time would itself have its beginning and its end. Even if it's just theoretically so, it would still be that way. And so you...
And transient, then it's transient.
Uh-huh.
Each part is gone before the moment. 260 parts?
260th of a snap of a finger.
Okay, so then 260, all those moments have to pass.
Have to pass.
Well, I mean, they're over. Like 260 of a moment,
Of a snap.
of a snap,
Yeah.
is,
Is the shortest particle of time. Can we say particle for time? We have to ask a visionary. Please.
But that can't be.
What can't be?
There's always a beginning and end of every moment, so if you look at a second has to be infinite.
Yes, but I mean, you're saying that theoretically. The meditator is saying, no, actually there is an element of time which shorter than that cannot exist. That is the smallest element of time.
But isn't the Buddha able to experience all time at once?
Possibly, I don't know
So
how.
then that, from what I've heard, so the 260 parts of a unit, that's what someone who's not enlightened can discern. But if you were able to slow time down as much as you wanted,
Can Buddha slow time down?
You're asking me?
theoretically,
I don't know that one would slow time down or one would slow one's perception of time down.
Yeah.
I don't know which. Again, we have to ask our mathematician here.
what, are you a mathematician or a physicist?
He got his PhD in mathematics, he told us last week.
Fine, that's good qualifications.
Enough so that we can rely on.
Saying that.
It's such an
He's
extraordinary thing.
expected to
I'm
report.
greatly impressed. What was the question?
Oh, I
you have a
asked, can a
question?
Buddha slow down time, and you were saying, I don't know if they can slow down time, but the perception of time.
They can slow their perception down to the point where
Right. That makes sense. Makes more sense. Right, they can't slow down time collectively forever. They can slow down their own.
so that's rather important. A Buddha is not omnipotent.
Yeah.
A Buddha is omniscient. And that is the quality by which the Buddhas help us along. So, this discussion about what inherent existence might be, I thought I would address the fact that it is that perception of inherently existent phenomena that is the basis for our having attachment, aversion, all these other afflictive emotions. When we perceive of things as being empty of inherent existence, then there is no real basis for attachment, those afflictive emotions. And Tsongkhapa discusses this. So I may have to go back a little further, but I'll just refer to Chandrakirti's commentary on Aryadeva's 400 stanzas, where he says, attachment and so forth superimpose features such as attractiveness or unattractiveness only upon the intrinsic nature of things that ignorance has superimposed. Therefore, they do not work apart from ignorance. In other words, attachment and so forth do not work apart from ignorance, the ignorance that superimposes. They depend upon ignorance. This is because ignorance is the main affliction. So I thought that this was sort of important to remind us of the fact that our attachment to phenomena, our aversion towards things, those attitudes don't come up except in respect to viewing phenomena as existing in some kind of independent, inherent way.
Unitary, independent.
So, okay, then how does, if you figure this out, that about, if you kind of really get it, that about non-inherent existence and so on, how does that lead to a realization of emptiness, or are they the same?
A realization of the non-inherent existence of the microphone is a realization of the emptiness. What is emptiness? It's empty of inherent existence. That's what emptiness means.
Thank you.
So when you realize that emptiness of the phenomenon, then there's no basis for
Yes,
attachment,
yes,
aversion.
yes.
I'm working on it in respect to cameras and things like
Me
that.
too. It seems very ambitious, but these are
worth
our
it.
instructions.
Definitely worth it, because you can still take pictures without having attachment to the camera. It still it functions better as a tool when you're not imputing.
Yes.
Do you think that one takes better pictures without attachment to the camera, or they don't have anything to do with one another? Or one takes different pictures, not better?
So I'm a believer that that your pictures are a reflection of your relationship to the world that you're photographing, and as your perception of the world that you're photographing evolves or changes,
Right,
your pictures are going to evolve.
right.
So this has been I've not always understood the connection that it seems like if I'm looking at a bowl of ice cream, I know that ice cream is impermanent. I'll eat it for 5 minutes and it'll be gone or it'll be melted. But I'm still very attached to the idea of eating that ice cream. And so I know it doesn't have inherent existence because of its lack of permanence. And that's not what, its inherent existence isn't what's attracting me.
No. Well, I'm not sure that I can say that it's not that its inherent existence is attracting you. This perception of inherent existence appears to your when you view the ice cream. It's sort of, or when you think of ice cream, as soon as you have the thought of ice cream, as soon as you've identified and thought about ice cream, along with that thought is an appearance of that object, the ice cream, as existing in and of itself. And it is towards that you have desire.
So
or dislike. It's in other words, if it were simply if you weren't imputing some actual quality of existence on it, you wouldn't have the emotion of attachment or aversion. Is what I think Tsongkhapa is saying, or Chandrakirti is saying.
So maybe it would be that you're pushing aside your understanding that it's impermanent in favor of just looking at it right then and there as being substantial.
So you're saying that you have an actual first of all, I should say that a perception of something's impermanence is not a perception of something's emptiness.
Yeah.
Those are understanding impermanence helps when you see that, we think of this as having a certain permanence. But if impermanence is not that this, if it falls, it breaks. Impermanence is what we were talking about when we were talking about time, is that this is existing, that this particular moment of the cup and this particular moment of a cup are separate, right? One happened, doesn't exist anymore, and then the next one happened and doesn't exist anymore. Now you have now. So cup exists within a continuum of moments of the existence of cup. And the perception of that, the realization of that, will definitely change your attitude towards the cup. But it won't be a realization of the emptiness of cup. It'll be a realization of the impermanence of cup. When you realize the emptiness of cup, at the time that you are looking for the cup among its parts, now the cup is made up of parts, right? When you I want to say very clearly that I'm just talking theoretically. It's not as if I've had any of these experiences. But when you are searching for the cup among the parts based upon which you impute cup or give the name cup, when you look for the cup among its parts, when you suddenly discover that there is no cup among its parts, when you focus upon that non-existence of cup among its parts, that's the realization of the emptiness of cup. You have all the different parts of cup. None of them are the cup, they're all the parts. And we name, we give we view and impute a cupness to all those parts. In the same way that we view a nickiness to all the parts that make me up. I view it, and when you look at me, you see me there, and I see you there. And so we do that with everything. That's how we identify with things. But when you actually, were you to not impute that, were that quality not to appear to you, that quality of the cupness of the cup, then the basis for any attachment to it would apparently also dissolve. Cookies, we should...
It seems,
No, please, no.
okay. It seems like emptiness would have to, and a realization of emptiness might involve seeing in more detail all the parts of the cup as well as realizing there's no cupness. Because when you identify that as cup and as desirable, you're pushing aside things that are undesirable about it in your image. The same thing with ice cream. look at maybe the flavor and the texture and the temperature, but not where it came from, which, we're not looking at the animal suffering who gave us the ice cream and things. So it seems like it would be more full of information, as well as your realization of emptiness, as well as kind of dispersing it.
But at the moment of experiencing or perceiving the lack of cupness, when you're looking for the cup and you say, were it to exist, it would have to exist in these ways. It doesn't exist in these ways. What you are then experiencing is a lack of cupness. It's when they talk about emptiness, it's you are actually seeing a lack. It's referred to as a non-affirming negative. It's a negative that doesn't. The negative of cupness is not affirming anything in its place. It's simply you are experiencing that negative. And then when you stop looking for the negative, they say that if you've had a realization of emptiness, when you come out of your meditation where you've been looking for that cup and you don't find it, you then perceive things. They appear to exist inherently, but you have no belief in that. You know that that's false. But you continue to perceive things as existing inherently. The ice cream.
Well, I don't know if these two things work together, but there's also a concept that you are not different from another person. How does non-inherent existence fit into that?
Well, like everyone else, I'm empty of inherent existence. So I'm just as you are empty of inherent existence, I am empty of inherent existence. That's the only
congruence between
you and me. We're both American.
Yeah, but getting down to the root here is that we are not inherently existent.
Yeah, no, I don't. We can ask our mathematician here. Are there other similarities between Leslie and me?
Are there other differences between Leslie and you?
No,
Yes,
similar. You're talking about differences or similarities?
Similarities that between there is a concept that you are. I think this applies in Buddhism, that you are not different from another person.
So I don't know in what context you mean.
Well, I'm trying to get some insight into non-inherent existence.
So nothing possesses inherent. Nothing exists inherently, and so we share that.
Do we share anything else?
What about pure awareness,
Pure awareness of.
consciousness?
Go a little further.
Well, if you're not, I don't want to speak too much my first time here, but
This is Dylan.
hi everybody.
Say as much as please.
But if there's no inherent existence, there's no self, there is still that awareness, right, of being here. Maybe not existing as a self, but that's existing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the knowing of things, right? The knowing of self, the knowing of your cup, right? That knowing, I think, in some contexts could be considered quite similar. Your knowing of the cup and Leslie's knowing of the cup. And that's, in a lot of ways, what we are.
But each of us has a different perception of the cup. Each of us is imputing cupness differently. And one person can see a very beautiful cup, and one person can say what an ugly cup. I mean, that's rather interesting.
Perfect cup for that.
Yeah?
Beautiful cup, and then also think it wasn't a beautiful cup, I
And
guess.
it just isn't.
There you go.
Yeah, no.
So even within, and you know, there are those who would not consider it a cup at all. You put a bunch of pencils in it and it's a pencil holder, and so how does that work with your,
Well, I think that comes after the knowing, right? I guess even a level below that, right? The conscious awareness of what you're witnessing. So your thoughts after that, your preferences are going to be different. But just the bare knowing of it.
but the bare knowing of it that someone who knows that this is a cup would have, and the bare knowing of it that, let's say, a dog
But
or a
before the
cat.
naming, before before you layer on a concept.
Okay.
So like we're both experiencing it, we're both conscious of
An object.
that thing on the
Right.
table.
And then we start going in
And
different ways.
I don't see it as well, so you see the handle and you go, oh, that's a cup, and I see it and go, that looks like it would be a nice pencil holder.
And the dog wants to.
So the consciousness is sort of the same consciousness, it's just our perceptions are
Yeah, I
different.
can't think of a way in which I would be aware, before I layer on concepts, where I would be aware. I think that very first sense of being aware, to me, seems quite similar to what I don't know, but I would assume what your sense of awareness would be. But then as soon as you start going beyond that, it's going to be different.
So as soon as it is only once you've gone beyond that you label it as cup.
Right,
So you're talking about the moment before labeling it.
yeah.
At which point, I can't even speak about it.
Right.
At which
But-
point, so the basic thing that is there that we are all perceiving differently, you're saying is there.
It is there.
But everyone perceives it, identifies it differently. I mean, we within a certain culture might identify it in a certain way, but you know, the animals and the. So
Yeah.
you're.
But I'm going back to the sorry, I don't want to
Initial.
keep it going.
No,
But
no.
the consciousness, the pure consciousness before all of that. I can't find a way to distinguish how my consciousness could really be different from Leslie's or yours before concepts arise.
But now we're talking about the moment before we identify it.
Like, maybe this is interesting, like, when I don't have my glasses on and I'm looking down at a page, I know that there's something there. I don't know what it is really, but I know that there's, I can't really see very well, but I know that there's something there. Someone else could see what it says. Someone else might not be able to see it all. If they have the paper on their lap, they might know though that something's on that paper, that might be some text. So maybe that's what you're speaking to.
Yeah, the knowing of the experience.
It's just like the awareness that something is there.
Right.
Or if if my vision was blurred and I saw yellow behind you, I could say there's yellow over there, but I don't know that it's curtains necessarily.
But I do think that Buddhahood is not like taking off your glasses. I mean, I think the Buddha
Certainly
knows that
not.
there's a cup there, but it's absent the idea that it's intrinsically a cup, right? That would be the difference between what I see and what a Buddha sees. Is but the Buddha would see that there's a cup there, right? 'Cause they don't see like a.
I'm not, as we go through life, you go for a walk and you say, oh, there's a house and there's someone's property and there is a doghouse on the property. Each of those identifications that we make, the property and the doghouse and the house and the tree on the property, and each time we focus on these different identifications, we are attributing some inherent quality to it. None of those things exist inherently. We are simply,
But those statements are conventionally valid,
yeah,
is what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say. So like the fact that there's a cup there is conventionally valid. Like when the perception of a Buddha is not some kind of like featureless mush where you can't tell apart.
no, but in my example of the property on which there is a big house and there's a dog house and there's a tree, it's not that it is any individual one of those. It's each of those, and it can be all sorts of other things. You can go down to each blade of grass, and so all of those elements that you can focus on, that you can each identification within the whatever you want to call it, the panoply of phenomena that are being observed is attributed with an identity when we attribute it. The particles that make all this up, the Buddha can identify or share with our identification of a particular element, as well as any other configuration thereof to form other elements. Yeah. Yes, that passes the.
I mean, the Buddha is omniscient, so yes.
So, I don't really know how the Buddha gets it.
I'm just stating the things that we've been told.
But the idea that the what do you call it, the substance out of which we then identify is infinite, maybe, and I don't. When you talk about that initial perception, that's a perception of, but
Yeah.
it's worse already.
It is. It's before the concept, which you of course layer on after. But if you go way back, then you start to see similarities.
So, okay. Well, all of these things we're talking about theoretically. And what we have to work at is actually understanding these things on a deeper level. And that's exactly where we've gotten in
Is that what the debate is about?
what today's debate
The
is.
debating. Is that what debating is about, breaking this down and understanding this non-inherent existence on a different level?
No, debating is simply a method by which you push yourself to scrutinize a little more deeply and a little more carefully and in a more structured and focused way. And by debating with others, someone is pushing you to explore the ramifications of your particular point of view or your particular understanding or whatever. But then you have to meditate. Then you have to take the fruit of what you've come to understand intellectually and have it change your perception so that you come to the point of experience. So that's, I think, reached chapter 11, page 155. We have now explored in some detail what spirituality and ethical living entail in terms of personal practice. We have discussed some ways to bring mindful awareness into everyday life. Some ways to develop greater awareness so that we can learn to regulate our emotions. And finally, some ways to actively cultivate our inner values. Since all these practices are especially the last two, involve some degree of disciplined application of the mind, in this final chapter I would like to say a few words about cultivating mental discipline. For myself, such cultivation is an indispensable part of daily life. On the one hand, it helps reinforce my determination always to act compassionately for the well-being of others. On the other, it helps me keep in check those afflictive thoughts and emotions by which we are all assailed from time to time, and to maintain a calm mind. So by mental cultivation, I mean a disciplined application of mind that involves deepening our familiarity with a chosen object or theme. Here I am thinking of the Sanskrit term bhavana, which connotes cultivation, and whose Tibetan equivalent gom has the connotation of familiarization. These two terms, often translated into English as meditation, refer to a whole range of mental practices, and not just, as many suppose, to simple methods of relaxation. The original terms imply a process of cultivating familiarity with something, whether it's a habit, a way of seeing, or a way of being. So I think it's very useful to see meditation as a process. It's not this sort of transcendental, working towards the transcendental experience, or it's one of familiarizing ourselves with something. It's whether it's a concept such as compassion, or a feeling, or an attitude such as compassion, where we are working at deepening it through the technique of meditation, and where we are developing an understanding of it intellectually. We are then thinking about those so that they're not just concepts, and then we are working at deepening it so that we actually feel compassion, where it becomes part of us, and holding on to that so that it permeates our attitude to life more in a stronger way. That, or we were talking about impermanence before. You take the idea of the impermanence that we can't perceive, the momentary nature of the cup, that is not, when we look at the cup, we don't see its impermanence. The impermanence of the cup is something that, the subtle impermanence, I should say, of the cup is not something we can perceive directly. It's something that we have to logically come to we have to infer, because that momentary nature of the cup is faster than our ability to perceive. We have to actually understand that the cup being produced or being momentary is impermanent. And if I can understand that the cup is momentary, and I can understand that anything that is momentary is necessarily impermanent, I can thereby understand that the cup is impermanent. Now, the use of that combination of ideas or thoughts leads to an inference of the impermanence of cup. But you have to meditate. You have to understand the structure of the logical, the syllogism that you're dealing with, and you have to actually go through the process of seeing that since the cup is a product, it is necessarily, or since the cup is momentary, it is necessarily impermanent. And then you have to remain focused on that impermanent nature of the cup to the point where you experience the impermanence of the cup. That's another form of going through a logical process and then focusing on the result of that logical process to the point where you actually, apparently, experience the impermanence of the cup. That's a little bit different from conjuring up, going through the steps that lead to compassion, the feeling of compassion towards others, seeing their suffering, identifying with their suffering from understanding, recognizing your own suffering, understanding how dependent you are on others, and thereby, through meditation, through familiarization, coming to a point where you begin to feel compassion for others. Those are slightly different things. One is this, you're working at changing your inner feeling towards others. The other, you are conjuring up an inference and then focusing on that inference to the point where it becomes clearer to you. Does that make sense? So the technique of developing the you have to go through the thought process, and then you have to stop thinking and just remain. You have to experience. You have to hold on to the experience. Those two are both gom. They're both meditation, but one is a process of developing a certain familiarity with the sort of logical structure of it, and actually accepting it and seeing it to be logical, and then the other is placing your mind on the result of that process. A process of transformation. How then does this process of mental cultivation lead to spiritual inner transformation? Here it may be helpful to invoke the idea of the 3 levels of understanding as found in the classical Buddhist theory of mental transformation. These levels are understanding derived through learning, and that's just when you hear instructions, the initial developing an understanding of something. Hearing, learning, understanding derived through reflection, which is the contemplation upon it, and understanding derived through contemplative experience. For example, consider people who are seeking to understand the deeply interdependent nature of today's world. They may first learn about it by listening to someone talk about this issue or by reading about it. But unless they deeply reflect upon what they hear or read, their understanding remains superficial and closely tied to their knowledge of the meaning of the words. At this level, their understanding of a given fact will be only an informed assumption. However, as they then reflect more deeply upon its meaning, applying analysis as well as dwelling mindfully upon the conclusion they reach, a deep sense of conviction arises of the truth of the fact. This is the second level of the process of understanding. Finally, as they continue to cultivate deep familiarity with the fact, their insight into it becomes internalized, making it almost part of their own nature. They have then reached the third level of understanding, which is characterized in the classical text as experiential, spontaneous, and effortless. So, what are your thoughts on this whole process?
Third level's really hard to get to.
The third level is really hard to get to. Yes, yes. but it's rather exciting that that there is that possibility of getting to it. And it's also nice to know that there is a process by which you can get to that third. But there are things in your life that you have heard, studied, worked at understanding, and then arrived at an experience of.
But it's, in a way, it's easy to look at something that you already understand, and it's harder when you're taking apart a cup and trying to come at its emptiness.
No, but if you take it, again, step by step, I mean, we can't expect this to be a quick process, but if we listen to and study the whole idea of the emptiness of cup, and then we work at applying the logical, what would you call it, the analysis that leads to a perception of an inferential perception of the emptiness of cup. And then once we've actually had that inferential perception of the emptiness of cup, we remain focused on that, eventually it can become an experience. If we lay it out as, yes, it's difficult, but the fact that it's possible is already rather, I hope it's a little bit.
But I tend to think of it as something like when you get to that point, it's almost like seeing something in nature that's beautiful, or seeing something that's beautiful and not thinking about it, not having an internal dialogue about it, but just experiencing it.
Mm-hmm.
Similar? Not the same?
No, I don't think, I think that's just, no, I don't think it's the same. I think that, no. I mean, enjoy those moments. I think they're closer to that initial lack of thoughtness that we can have in respect to life. But if you're trying to identify let's say, the impermanence of the phenomena that you're apprehending as you walk through life, the momentary nature of life, then it's not just it's actually saying, gosh, all the things that I'm experiencing from the moment I started experiencing to now, they have gone from moment to moment to moment. They are momentary. And then you have to sit and actually focus on that momentary nature to the point where you perceive it. That's a deep experience.
Do you think that being in those circumstances more often, like obviously subtle impermanence is always happening, things are always changing, but I think there's certain environments where it's harder to perceive, and then other environments where it's very obvious, like being in Manhattan and for 5 seconds, it feels like everything's incredibly impermanent and things are changing very quickly, very obviously. And I feel that also when I'm in nature, that I always feel like that in Manhattan or nature, that everything's changing really quickly.
So what's this in-between place between Manhattan and nature?
Jersey. What I might say is
this is the Garden State. The Garden State.
But I think that like when I'm in my home for working for a long period of time, I'm writing, whatever. In my mind, things are very impermanent. I might be deep in thought, but like my desk, it's always like my desk and my house. And these things are certainly impermanent, obviously, but it's harder sometimes to perceive because everything feels kind of a little more subtly impermanent in some way. Whereas when I go out into the world, I'm feeling it a little more overtly. So my question is, does it feel like it's a good practice to be in the what feels like a maybe more overt impermanent world, to be able to make these perceptions more quickly, or is it not related in any way?
Well, I think that if you are perceiving a permanent quality to your desk and to yourself in your home environment, that's the place where you have to work on
Right,
yourself.
right, and seeing it, that it is not
It-
permanent.
It is, yeah, it is those, that's where you are attributing a certain permanence to.
Yeah,
And you know, if you analyze New York and if you look at any of the phenomena within New York City, you'll see them as being permanent. You know, you grab the handle of the
yeah.
subway.
Sure, yeah, the buildings, the sidewalk, the thing, everything that's like, feels like this, yeah.
And nature too. We walk around and we perceive things as
Right, each one could be the inverse, whether it's my desk or it's out in the.
so. This work has to be done quietly, using our minds, not so much the stuff out there, but really.
Right,
And to do that, it's best to do it in an environment where we can really focus with discipline on a process that leads us to the conclusion that something is impermanent.
Because the desk only seems permanent, but there are molecules inside the desk that are moving.
She doesn't see that.
I don't see it either.
I don't, yeah, I don't see it, I know it, but I
You
don't see it.
Right.
Do you see it?
If only.
But maybe our mathematician.
Surely Eugene sees it.
He's not a physicist.
Okay, I think we should stop here. What's today? This is the 20. Gosh, March is going by moment by moment by moment by moment, and here we are on the 26th.
But if we look at this from a historical perspective, everything is gonna disappear anyway. I mean, the Maya had a great empire and culture and
But
material culture.
Maya
They
means
disappear.
illusion.
All right.
It's
We'll take
all
the Native
illusory.
American Indians, it's all gone. This all, everything eventually breaks down. So it will, the cup even will disappear if time passes, if enough time passes.
You think?
But it will be reduced to sediment.
But that's called gross impermanence. Just for the record, as we're talking about
Thank you.
developing some perception, some experience of impermanence, the quality of impermanence that we're really working at identifying is the subtle, momentary nature of the cup. That it exists, that we attribute a quality of cup on a series of moments, a quality of permanent cup on a series of moments of cup.
So, like, how all of those parts and conditions and moments function as a cup.
What you've just said, I think, is bringing together the impermanent nature of the cup as well as the empty nature of the cup. And I think that we really dwell on the impermanent nature of the cup in order to develop a familiarity with the technique by which we eventually come to a realization of the emptiness of the cup. So, thank you. This has been a very interesting discussion. So we shall read, Darren? We shall read the Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels. In the FAQ section below, you will find all our prayers. I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Buddha, Bhagavat, Tathagata, Arhat, Samyak Sambuddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He is not stained by the realm of desire. He is not stained by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats who arise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma which is taught by the Bhagavat is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the great Yana, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, liberating from the lower realm. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they've shown the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore, the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. Okay, and the 8 verses on training the mind. With the determination to accomplish the highest welfare of all sentient beings who surpass even a wish-granting jewel, and learn to hold them supremely dear. Whenever I associate with others, I will learn to think of myself as the lowest amongst all, and respectfully hold others to be supreme, from the very depths of my heart. In all actions I will learn to search into my mind, and as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly face and avert it. I will learn to cherish ill-natured beings and those oppressed by strong misdeeds and sufferings, as if I had found a precious treasure difficult to find. When others, out of jealousy, treat me badly, with abuse, slander, and so on, I will learn to take all loss and offer the victory to them. When the one whom I have benefited with great hope unreasonably hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as an excellent spiritual guide. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone without exception all help and happiness directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm and suffering of my mothers. I will learn to keep all these practices undefiled by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns, and by understanding all phenomena as like illusions, be released from the bondage of attachment. And now a prayer for the swift return of Ratuk Kyungla Rinpoche. Exalted wisdom of all victors gathered in a drop, sole refuge manifest in the form of the one wearing saffron robes, Guru Lobsang Tugwang Dorje Chang. Please bear witness here today that our prayers may be fulfilled. We beseech the great torch of doctrine, accomplishing from long ago the vast ways of aspirational prayers, Lord of speech of the victor Lobsang's teachings, spreading them to the ends of the earth by means of explanation and practice. Though holding the commitment, I will invite all beings to be my guests in unsurpassed great awakening, yet you have withdrawn the activities of the body that serve the welfare of others. Is that worthy of the supreme among beings, the Bodhisattvas? Though impossible for you till cyclic existence end, to abandon your commitment to liberate all beings, we beseech the new son of Nirmanakaya to swiftly return from the realm of Dharmakaya, brought forth by Bodhicitta and drawn by 7 steeds. Having reached the far limits of scholarship, religious life, and goodness, please come swiftly as an unrivaled supreme emanation, the full holder of the sage's teachings, a wish-fulfilling jewel, return as the glory of Losang Tempe. Magnificent truth of the 3 precious jewels, Mahakala, Karmayama, and Srimati Devi, and the ocean of Dharma protectors, may you spontaneously fulfill our wish, the swift blossoming of the incarnation's fresh moonlight face. Thank you. Good night.